All right, I think another Monday, another 8 p.m., another quick bites with HR Bites. So nice to see many of you all coming in live and listening in. I think Quick Bites with HR Bites has actually been a journey of conversations starting off with friends on topics that are very close to their heart, getting in some HR professionals, also stand up comedians, people from theater, people from the world of cinema. You asked for businessmen to come in and share stories about how they started their business, how they scaled it up to be large brands. We did that as well. And then, of course, you said, hey, we have so many Indians on the show. Can you get us someone from the West? We did that as well. But my podcast tonight is going to be with someone. And if you read the LinkedIn post that spoke about the intro, is going to be with someone where tables are going to turn. For those of you who know me, know that it's been almost 2 decades that I've been teaching in some form or shape, either as a visiting faculty or a professor of practice, or going out there and doing guest lectures. And when I was thinking of who should I bring from the world of marketing? Who should I bring from the world of agencies? Of course, the big names, the names we've grown up with, always sound familiar. Be it Radhika, be it Piyush Pandey, close friends, and I'm sure they will come on the show at one point in time. But it took me back to the days of being in the classroom, someone in the classroom who would ask a lot of questions. And I said, what goes around comes around. So let me now be the person not just answering the questions, but also asking the questions. And from the batch of 2018, a student of mine, I have absolute pleasure on bringing on stage Radhika Shah. Radhika, very, very warm welcome to Quick Bites with HR Bites.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm actually excited and looking forward to the session we are going to have today.
Super. Radhika, I know you're at an offsite in a beautiful location, although you're indoors right now, and I know the entire team is partying. But I must say, I love the commitment. We fixed a date. You agreed to the date. I know your phone's also buzzing on the side, but absolutely incredible. You haven't changed one bit. Commitment in class. Oh my God, what's
Yeah.
that now? That's a notification?
Yeah. Ignore.
Okay, so commitment in
Yeah.
class to commitment at a podcast, that has pretty much remained the same. But tell me, it's been long since we've spoken. What happened post your masters?
So, post my master's, I was very happy. In fact, I was one of the first students who got placed and started job before I got done with my master's. So, I think I got placed in the month of January, while we usually end the final semester somewhere in March, April. And it was 2020 where COVID was about to just, hit us. And I got placed in by February. I had almost like I already started working. So I was a student and I was placed and I was working on a full time job because the campus really allowed me do that. And it was a very exciting thing for a new student, for an early post grad who's a fresher, getting to experience such good things at, even before she got graduated. But then, of course, COVID hit us. And I was a marketing management trainee at this real estate firm. And I was being asked at that moment, because of COVID, to move out because I was just a trainee. Post that, I went through a major setback. Of course, life takes you through an entire roller coaster before you finally settle down, is what I feel. And then after, I think, 1 year of doing something of my own as a startup, I again went back to the industry. I found this amazing role where I am currently at the brand brewery. So it's an experiential agency wherein we deal with multiple industries. We have various roles that we get to play being at this front. And it's been a really exciting journey for me. It's been 4 years and it's still going on. And the fun doesn't end for marketing here. So Yeah, that's how
Fantastic.
it is.
Very nice. So we're going to be talking about ads. We're going to be talking about clicks and mind tricks. And I think you spend a lot of time. 4 years is a good amount of time in this space decoding it. But I often think that brands today are like brain surgeons, right? They're actually
Yeah.
getting into your head. So tell us a little
Yes.
bit about from the agency side, and you work with a lot of brands, large ones as well. How is it that with everyone trying to just get attention spans of the viewer or the buyer or the consumer or the customer, different TGs out there, and attention span depleting with every passing day? How are agencies and the work that you do or brands actually getting into mind space of consumers and staying there, not just getting in, but also staying there? Tell us a little bit about the work that you've done in this space.
Sure. So, earlier it's so used to happen that, we had those standard stores where a person is going, buying a product. If they like it, they buy it. If they don't, then they come back sometime, they visit it, and they see a few ads here and there. We had billboards where the branding took place. Internet and AI was not that developed back in the days. So it was pretty easy for people to have those sort of interactions. But in today's time, where a consumer is so aware that even if you say that it is XY, the product is XYZ verified, the person will immediately go and first search. He or she will understand whether this product is really saying being is really that authentic, right? So today the communication is more around trust. You have to be very quick with the trends. You can't miss out on a single thing, and even if you're late by a few hours, you're done. I mean, it's too late for you to go live with that campaign. So I think that's the way the entire industry overall, at different level, is processing. The pace has been too fast, and you have to be really quick as a marketer, or even as an agency who's helping these brands to cope up and build up with the current progress. So,
Got it. Yeah. I think, Radhika, while I spend time teaching you, if you had to do a master class today on neuromarketing, right? And I know this is a subject that's pretty much trending in your circles. And let's say you had to summarize a 3-hour lecture on neuromarketing in 3 minutes. What would your summary entail?
so, neuromarketing began as a niche curiosity back in the days. I mean, back then it was more like the neuroscience and advertising seemed like a science fiction, because people weren't that aware, and they did not know much about it. But in today's time, with so much of data accessible to the world out there, it is more about why it works and how you can scale your product or your branding overall, and bring it out to the audience. We have biometric data, we have visibility for facial coding, we have emotional AI come into the picture, and we also have tools like eye tracking, that when they can identify how a consumer is behaving on a certain thing. In fact, when we talk about neuromarketing, I personally love to eat chips. Just sharing one example.
Sure.
And because I love to eat chips, whenever I go to a store, the first thing that I'd look at the particular product is the color. Color psychology is also something that brands really focus and play around. So, these minute things, the type of font you use, the type of colors you're using, and what communication you're putting down, and how effective your ad is when you're running it on a social media platform. I mean, today, as a consumer, nobody would want to spend more than maybe 30 seconds on a certain ad. I mean, they would not stick around watching that video for too long. So all of these really come into picture. In fact, a very good example of neuromarketing also can be for an iPhone. I mean, iPhone every year brings out new models, right? And it's not that you really need that product, but it is because you are made realize that you need this and you have to buy it because, oh, everyone else is buying. That fear of missing out comes into the picture. So now that the brands are more aware and they get to experience these various tools and understand how consumers are behaving at a neural level, it really helps them understand. And also, just to state, there was this one study which states that 95% of the decision making happens subconsciously, and the 5% is what is the conscious decision. So when I go to a store, if I'm buying something, what we usually call as impulsive buying, that's actually your 95% of decisions that you're taking subconsciously. And neuromarketing, I think, exactly taps into that 95%, which was being missed out by the marketers earlier. They were not able to identify why actually a person is buying that. Because sometimes, you see certain ads and people say, I was just talking about this and I don't know how this it just appeared on my feed, right? And that, I feel, is where the marketers are now able to get into. So that's how it's helped overall over the years, is what I feel. And it's
Super,
growing.
very
AI
nice.
is, I mean,
Yeah, AI is all
it's
center
growing.
stage, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, it won't be fair if we don't involve our live audience. So, since this is about marketing, it is about the consumer. I would love to ask everybody who's listening in live, this is your opportunity to get onto the chat, whether you're on YouTube, Insta, or LinkedIn. Tell us, do you have an iPhone? And if yes, do you keep upgrading your iPhone? And if you're not an iOS user and you're on Android, have you ever been attracted to buy an iPhone under peer pressure? Yes, no. We would love to hear from you on the chat as we build the narrative around this. So, Radhika, I think some very pertinent points that you really brought up, and it actually gets me to think brands also very consciously choose their brand colors, right? And I know there is a huge science around color therapy, but do you think there is a correlation between the two? Like if my brand has a lot of red or a lot of golden, do those colors also play on the mind to induce purchasing, or not so much?
It,
Of course, we say
I
it's a given that the product is good. You can't have a bad product and have fancy colors, but given that the product is reasonably good, do colors really induce purchase?
Yes, they definitely do. I mean, right from, I'd say, a fashion brand, which a luxury brand, if you will see, their colors are very subtle, they're niche. It's either all black, all white, the way they do their branding. If you will see a lot of FMCG brands, they play a lot with the color red. They use a lot of pop colors. So it excites a person as an audience to actually go and purchase that product. So I feel color psychology is the key thing when you think of branding and packaging, that does play a very important role in it.
Got it. So from color psychology, let's move to scrolling psychology. And I think you spoke about the phone listening to conversations and saying, hey, let's plan a trip to Bali. And suddenly Bali holidays and Bali travel and Bali swing and everything else pops up on your feed. But also, are brands and agencies spending a lot of effort, time, dollars on research on scrolling psychology? Where do people click, where do people skip, where do people ghost brands, where do people binge? What are some of the learnings
Mhm.
as a marketeer or as an agency that you've had working with brands on scrolling psychology?
So again, speaking of the scrolling psychology, earlier scrolling used to happen more when it was for a utility purpose. I mean, you did not endlessly scroll because again, you did not have those applications available on readily on your phone, right? It was either for checking the weather, it was any new updates or any news or utility that you wanted to purchase. But today, with availability of phone and the technology development that we've had, there are various applications and you go on with those infinite scrolls, and it is literally engineered to hijack those dopamine loops that you have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in fact, just to give you another example, I was just talking to my mom on call, and I was just telling her that monsoon's coming, and I'm just gonna buy another umbrella. I was thinking for. I cut the call, and that very minute, I'm also, seeing the ad pop up. And I'm again now, focusing on all of these elements while we're talking of scrolling. There's one very nice example of Instagram, which I saw that because I love to, after my working hours, I give a lot of time into scrolling to see any new content that's getting created. There's some influencer doing certain campaigns. It has this very nice feature lately that it has got out, is of the quiet mode, if you would have experienced,
Yeah.
which is consciously also telling and highlighting how important it is for a person's well-being to actually be away from it. So while Instagram knows that, we know that infinite scrolling is not good for your health, but for your well-being, we do have a feature that highlights that you should take a setback. So these are certain things that I feel brands should really focus on while they know that they are addressing to such issues as well.
Super. I think you spoke about two important points, right? One is, of course, we've had situations where the phone's on the table, two people are talking in living room or in the bedroom, and the phone is listening.
Yeah.
But the phone listening to a conversation on a phone call between two people, isn't that really infringement of privacy?
It is. And in fact, there are a lot of international brands also who have lately made it very clear that we do, access certain elements while as a user, you're using our feed. And
Right.
a lot of people have now willingly said no to those accesses because they were being forced to actually make it very visible and clear for the people who are using their applications, to be very clear of the kind of data that they are using for them. So that is something that has come out lately. Brands are more open to those things, but earlier it felt almost illegal for a lot of such profiles to happen there.
Correct, correct. I think the second thing you also spoke about is the whole influencer piece, right?
Yeah.
Earlier, when a couple of decades ago, you would have someone who was achieved a certain designation, spent a certain number of years, and therefore is talking from experience or has been there, done that, so on and so forth. But I think with the rise of the influencer cult, you see people in their 20s traveling the world free of cost, and in fact not even just traveling free of cost, getting paid for it, because they are promoting a certain holiday, or they're promoting a certain package or
Yeah.
certain features of the place, or the government is incentivizing them to promote their country for tourism. What's your take on the whole influencer piece? How much of it does should one believe? How much of it is actually paid, and therefore they say what the brands want them to say and not really what is necessarily 100% true? Is it a perfectly filtered, Instagrammable lifestyle, or is there an element of realness, if that is even a word, in it? So I know a couple of questions, Radhika, but just shooting it back to you, just the way you would shoot it to me in class. So, what's your perspective on some of these thoughts?
So again, coming to influencers, I think calling it a cult, it has it developed and evolved that way, but maybe they are completely not to be blamed, is what I feel. Initially, how it used to happen was that we had influencers who legit used to create content because they were bloggers and reviewers, and they were experts first, before personalities, right? But
Yeah,
in today's time, when a brand is approaching any of these influencers, they'll first look at the authenticity, because a brand is very conscious of selecting those people as well. So because of that, it's less about the expertise and more about how relatable your product is to that specific brand, right? And the influencer, of course. And now it has so happened that the personality is the product, and the vulnerability is the currency. And over the years, how it has evolved is, if we just take examples of these celebrities, I mean, celebrities are also influencers, and what they do is bases their personalities. I mean, just taking an example of the brand Hyphen by Kriti Sano. So she has a beauty product which Priyanka Chopra has a hair care brand called Anomaly. all of these people know that they have a vast array of audience who believes in them, and that is why they are picking up the product. So it today is very important for even a brand to approach any influencer who is more relatable, more authentic to their build. And I think it's not just limited to the big influencers, even the micro influencers. I mean, the user generated content today is so relevant and is so important for any brand to work on, that because in the end now we know that any brand, any end user is going to go on the trust of what other user is going to put out in the audience. So I mean, the rise of the influencer cult is also because that is the demand of the end user. They want to see that authenticity and that connectivity that they are able to develop with the person who is actually influencing them. So I think that's somewhere where we can focus on.
Yeah. And what happens to the brand equity of such influencers when they, actually go and hit a rock bottom on value system or on what they're not perceived as, and they talk about something else or foray into a different social media domain that people can't relate to, and the audience sees a dissonance between what they thought of that influencer and what the influencer turned out to be on a different platform. How does that impact brand equity of
I
the
think
celebrity? Yeah.
I think that impacts the brand equity at a very high level, and maybe that is the sole reason why a brand would also think maybe 10 times and do a proper research at their end to understand whether whether the influencer is really fitting into their niche of the product and what the product demands, right? A very good example in fact of the influencer marketing is also of Kusha Kapila, if you've seen lately. I mean, the brand, the way she communicated, even before introducing her brand, people so much wanted to know about, oh, how does that shapewear really look like, and how wonderfully she gave in tips, and it became a talk of the town. I mean, when she launched the product, it was already out there. People knew about it. That's the effect that you can create in the mind of customers, and I think that's what's more important and relevant for the audience today.
Yeah. But tell me, Radhika, what's your view on celebrities actually also milking brands, right? We've seen so many times, and even recently it was in the news where couple celebrities come together as a couple, and they are endorsing a certain brand, a footwear brand, and then over a period of time, not just the footwear but even other accessories, and then you realize that they sign off because they want to start investing in their own brand. So does the
Yeah.
brand really lose out because people start associating the brand with the celebrity, right? And suddenly when the celebrity moves out, does the brand take a hit, or another celebrity is very easily replaceable?
So now that people are more aware, I mean, back in the days it was more like, oh, because you did not what you were not exposed to that many brands and products and celebrities doing it, doing marketing of multiple brands at a time. You felt like, oh, that's real. But now that consumers are also aware of, somebody is just getting paid to do a job because it's a job to do, and brand in return is getting that visibility and the audience exposure which they have under their following. Both the parties and the consumers too, in fact, are okay knowing that you have taken this person as the face of the brand for a certain period. Of course, it is not like, I mean, there was the great example could be Amitabh Bachchan being there for years for Maggie brand. I mean, back then, even Madhuri Dixit, when recently Maggie had those allegations put across, these guys were the first ones who got highlighted, under the bad names. But now, of course, brands are also aware. It does not affect at that level, but they do their own research before they get into, onboarding any of these celebrities moving forward.
Got it. Let me just take you a little bit back in the day. I remember, though I haven't seen too many of them, but I remember and I've heard that, when movies used to be released in the 60s or 70s or 80s, there used to be these painters who would stand on scaffoldings and large displays, and
Yes.
they would paint, literally paint the entire thing that they would put up on that thing. And then obviously you had rolls that would come up, and then you now have LED screens. What's your take on banner blindness? Is it turned to brilliance? Do you see that outdoor is not as popular as online? Is there a debate that happens between the two, or a brand would go all out and therefore leverage all medium and platform? How does it work?
So again, when we talk about billboards and the banner blindness, earlier it was still very because earlier it was more like, you have those static ads which are there on the banner, and that's all about it. But with the growing time today, we see that there's a lot of storytelling and a lot of dynamic visuals that we are seeing with the banner ads as well. I mean, and now it's not just that boring static ad. You have so many variations, and the way the technology has upgraded, it has been a wonderful journey that way. So just to give an example, I saw a recent ad which was done by, again, this was a beautiful connect between the banner and the digital medium. So I don't know if you have been able to see it. I saw it in Mumbai. There was a billboard for Johnny Walker. It had Priyanka Chopra in it, and it was just a static banner. So I literally passed by and I saw that ad. And the other day, I'm seeing the same ad on my mobile phone. You would have heard of CGI, right? The CGI ads are, making something static into a realistic form and giving that 3D effect. So I just saw that ad on my phone wherein the billboard is still there. Priyanka Chopra from that billboard is seen walking out of the billboard, and the tagline of Johnny Walker is "Keep walking." That's what appears next as a super. So today there is so much possibility in terms of being more creative than just having some static banner. I mean, you can communicate a lot through banner ads these days. Is something that is really interesting. So yeah, and even I mean. The banner ads again is not just limited to the billboards and all. We also have a lot of digital banners that now goes into these application wherein you see a lot of banner articles, and again all of these are also in video formats, because we know that static post is something that does not really get into the audience mind until the communication is very clear. So a good play of videos also, those 3 seconder videos and 4 seconder videos also create a very good impact for the end users to actually tap on it and visit the website or a certain portal.
Yeah, that's so true because, and we see this play out very differently across generations, right? Because I've seen a couple of senior citizens who will still stick to old school newspaper, though they may have
Yes.
in shots on their mobile. But while they're reading the newspaper, if they write a certain article or something resonates with them, they'll immediately remove their smartphone, click a picture, and send it on the family group, right? And someone
Yes.
actually thought of an idea of saying, hey, you know what? There is this nice ad in the newspaper. And if you just get your camera on top of the ad and scan it, you actually have
Yes.
the video playing on your phone, right?
Yes.
So the ad comes to life where your 45-second or a 30-second video plays, and you get to know more about the ad, which is very boring if you just put it in text in a newspaper. So I think creativity also is being tested beyond measure over the years. What's your view?
Absolutely. I mean, so many. I mean, the example that you gave has been tested by so many brands lately. And even the anamorphic content that you see, the 3D billboards, I mean, they were there in other countries, but in India, they have now again taken up a rise. And I've seen so many just in Bombay. So I think that's something where the marketers and brands are also getting the leverage to be more creative, because that is again the ask of the end user as well at some point, because they are also done seeing those old format ads which used to take place. So that's something very interesting.
Yeah. But I think, you also mentioned about how Insta and other apps tell you screen time and also tell you about daily usage limits, and if you've crossed your limit or you're done for the day. Of course, you can extend it basis how much more time you want to spend, but it locks out. Um, what's this whole narrative around FOMO, right? I think a lot of times we've seen marketeers, agencies design a lot of aspirational brands campaigns around FOMO. So how does FOMO play out? And while we may know on every cigarette packet is mentioned smoking is injurious to health, yet people smoke. Similarly, if spending a lot of time on Insta is injurious to the eyes, yet we spend so many hours on Insta, or for that matter, any other app, till the phone battery dies. So, there was a WhatsApp joke that went to say, when do you go to sleep? And I don't go to sleep at a fixed time. I go to sleep when my phone battery
When battery
dies.
dies.
So, how does one really play out in this, both from a brand perspective and from a consumer perspective? I know self discipline is the best, but if not, how does one really draw a balance if a third person was looking at it?
So, talking of the fear of missing out, again, I'm just taking back to the olden days and now, because now things have evolved so much. So back then, again, we used to go to stores, we used to see there's limited stock left, only two units left, go purchase it. Now it has so become that the brands really are available and they're existing on digital banners, you'll see on billboards, you'll see them doing various activations in malls and every other setup that they can find the right TG to. So the fear of missing out and the urgency that a brand is able to create to address it to their audience is at a very high level, because the visibility wasn't there at that scale and they were not able to tap into those tools and utilize, do those A/B testing where, I'll see which ad works better, I'll push that to that audience and keep doing that more until and unless I want a certain sale target that I've kept for my brand. So, in today's time, it has been, I mean, just to give you one example, Blinkit, Zepto, we never asked that we wanted a 10-minute delivery, but they made it like it was a need. It was an urgency. Even for something like grocery, we can literally go out and get that. But brands like these, they do have communicated it in a way that it becomes the need of the hour, right? So I think it's both way. The end user is also getting very comfortable with it, but creating the right communication for what your brand wants to deliver is also something that's very interestingly done by brands these days. So yeah, that's something I wanted to highlight.
Got it. Very nice. I think very well put, Radhika. Radhika, I'm going to ask you a question that maybe is coming from very close from my heart, to say that if you had to break this up into three different audiences, okay? And I'll explain the three personas to you, and you tell me, as an agency, if you were to help each of them, how would the life cycle of delivery be different, right? So let's say Sahil wants to launch the HR Bytes brand, okay? And Sahil is just a working professional. He wants to formalize his brand alongside, called the HR Bytes. And Radhika is a friend, and I'm saying, Radhika, I have all of 10,000 rupees, so can you please help? Okay, so that's persona one. Persona two, let's say someone, a mid-size organization has been doing work in a certain area. You can feel free to assume whichever sector. Says, I have, let's say, a lakh of rupees, and what's available. We want people to know us a little more than what they know us. And we've been around for 5-10 years, and we've been, as an example, selling tumblers now, or we've been selling bottles, or we've been selling goodies to various organizations as part of the welcome kit or hamper. And then there is someone who says, listen, we have 10 lakh rupees, and we are a large organization, 4-5 thousand people, but we never really did any marketing, and we would like to do a little bit of brand building, so on and so forth. So this is the brief across three different user segments. I'm very keen to understand, as an agency, how would you approach this? How would client servicing happen? Because for a lot of people who want to build careers in these domains, and I'm picking up this example so that you can get into the details of each one of them, because people may not know what are the various teams in an agency. Which team works with whom? How does it work? If the scale and the magnitude is different, how does it play out? So take your time, but if you could take us through this across three different user segments, I think that would be very helpful.
Okay, so the first one you mentioned is for the HR bites, when there's a budget of 10,000. The second one is a
Correct.
brand which has maybe up to a lakh's budget, and what they essentially do is create welcome kits. And the third one is wherein there's a brand which has a budget up to 10 lakhs, and that is, I'm sorry, I'll just recheck
That
for
could
you.
be any brand. You can pick up any sector, but it's a large organization. Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
so
no.
sorry. I'm just getting the call. Yeah. The third one was.
A large organization who's been around for 10, 15 years, but never really invested in advertising. It was more word of mouth or among this thing, but now they want to invest in marketing or advertising.
And what is the product that they're
You could
selling?
pick any product, any sector, any product, whatever you like.
Okay, so you essentially want to understand the TG. How do
I
we
want to
break?
understand how does client servicing, delivery, all of that work, copy art in an agency, how does it work? And how will you work on a solution for the client?
So, the first question that we would ask to either of these three segment is, what is it that you want to communicate? Who is it that you want to
Sure.
communicate it to? And what are the mediums? Mediums, of course, we will also suggest from our end, but we'd like to understand how would you like to approach your audience and where. So there are a lot of questions that come in before we get down to a solution that we want to understand from a brand of what is their brand essence and how they want to put it out to the world. That once we understand that, that's when we build up a plan. We get into the brainstorming sessions with them. We build up and work upon communications for each of these three briefs that are very different, and then we get down to the execution. So it's more like an entire process that might take about a week to a month to identify what exactly is the best suited for them, and then we work on the results basis that.
Got it. Okay. Also, many a times we've seen, large celebrities, very famous celebrities promote brands that they might
Hmm.
not necessarily use, right?
Yes.
Be it cement, be it oil, be it different kinds of brands, and this person will not use this kind of a product.
True.
Do you think the trust equation gets disturbed in certain situations? Because at the end of the day, if the celebrity is doing it, if the brand is putting so much money behind the celebrity, I'm sure they have done their homework. So take us into the psychology of, if there is no resonance, why would people still do it? Does it really help boost sales?
So there are two ways to address this. The first one is an approach wherein a brand reaches out to an influencer and says that, hey, we really feel that your profile is fit, and we would like to move ahead with you, and you just have to create this video, you have to post it on your social media page, and we are done there. The second approach is wherein it is sales based, sales oriented, wherein we say that basis your performance. Of course, there's going to be some fixed budget allocated, but there's also going to be a variable which will completely depend on how you are able to convince your audience to actually buy the product. So again, that's a call that brands usually take when they want to proceed with such sort of approach. And it at a very high level, it does resonate. I mean, a brand usually makes sure, even we as an agency make sure that we have the brand having an influencer which is very resonating with what their core essence of the product is. So if we know that a brand is into fitness, we have to have a profile which is completely relatable to that brand. So it does not really affect to a certain point. And I think, again, like I said, because users are more aware now, they also know that influencers are not really going to use that product throughout, but it's how well they communicate that. In today's time, in fact, if you would have seen, a lot of brands go to influencers who add in a lot of humor in their communication. It's not just that, I'm creating emotions and I'm just conveying something, but it's how well I'm integrating that content, that it becomes so subtle that people don't feel like I'm doing some sort of marketing. It feels like, oh, it was a part of the script, and while I'm being all humorous and nice and having some random storyline which my audience usually loves to watch, I'm just integrating that brand or product very subtly. So I think that is what is going really well these days with the brands, and they really look forward to that content, that sort of a content creator who would build that relatability with the brand. So yeah.
Got it. Yeah, yeah. I think so. Earlier, you also mentioned about the fact that many a times when we interact with brands in the online space, we just scroll through the entire terms and conditions, and there's so many mentioned in terms of what access are we giving them, what data can they get from us, so on and so forth. And I think, and we just say I agree because that's the easiest thing to do, because we know that eventually if you have to
Who
download
would,
an app, sorry.
yeah, who would read that much of content and we just tap
Yeah,
onto that?
who's going to read it? And you don't even have an option to say, I don't agree with clause 1.1 or clause
Yeah.
10.6. Right? It's not a contract. So you're just going to say, I agree, because who's going to read it anyways? But in the process, you're trading with a lot of your personal information. Now, the question is, what are brands doing with so much of information? Or apps doing with so much of information? Are they selling this data, or are they using that data for market research? Is it a combination of other factors? Are there other things that they do with this data? Give us a little bit of insight there.
Again, this is more of gathering insights, and there are, I mean, brands that I would not name, but there are brands who might also use this data completely to send it out to somebody else, and they would actually make money out of it. But yes, essentially it is to, make sure that at any point, if you as a user are coming onto my application and then you are facing certain issues, we do, as a brand, we do have to get those disclaimers put very clearly, that if xyz happens, this is going to be the end result. Because a lot of time what happens is there are certain types of users as well who might create some sort of ruckus on the social media, and it might hamper the brand's image as well at a higher level. So they have to be very clear with the terms and conditions, or the pointers that they have put through, before a person actually agrees on that product, buying on that product, or any other reason. So that is also important from a brand's perspective, to take care of it.
Got it. Given that we have multi channels now, right? There's Facebook, there's Insta, there is LinkedIn, there are so many channels, apps, shopping apps, quick delivery apps, quick commerce apps, so many available. Brands, are they actually going out there with a very concerted strategy of where they want to be and therefore put their money? Or are they just going all out because they have huge budgets to stock you everywhere to just ensure that they grab your attention? I know one size won't fit all, but what have you seen playing out? Is there a little bit of research there on places where brands are actually going all out to get eyeballs on different platforms?
So brands definitely, even though they have a high budget, they're very conscious with every penny being spent behind a certain campaign. So there is a proper research which takes in months or maybe even a year before a super high budget is put into a certain brand. And I feel they are, they reach out to the selective, even us as an agency, when we help them reach to a certain tg, we do have to get that insight out, why is it relevant to be on a certain platform or in a certain location to do some activation, or be visible digitally on certain social media platforms also. So there is a lot of research that goes into, and it is a very conscious decision that a brand takes, whether they have a high budget or a lower budget, which is seemingly decent. So that does go into the role.
Sure. We see so many new brands springing up nowadays, so many startups coming up. They're actually addressing latent needs of a lot of consumers, right? In
Hmm.
fact, a lot of people coming up with various, new products that are solving challenges that consumers had for the longest time and were not addressed by the big multinational brands. Um, what do you think are the approach of these brands? Are they looking for customer loyalty or just the OTP?
So they definitely do look for the customer loyalty, because the core essence of having them come back, which is the retention, comes only when you build that loyalty with them. And again, going back to the example wherein um, when you're giving the user generated content, which we were talking about, the influencer, the only idea of
Yeah,
having that built in is to build that trust, loyalty to retain that certain customer. You do, I mean, any brand that exists definitely does want to come back to the same user, and they want them to experience more products and keep that sale going on and on. So that there is a very important connection of retention when we speak of any new startups as well.
sure, sure. I also think that, with this age of emerging technologies, AI, a lot of disruption happening. Earlier we would get onto Google to search for something, and we would not find it on page one. We would go to page two, page three, so on and so forth. And
Hmm.
you would see a lot of AdWords on the right hand side, paid ads, great revenue stream, right? But today, when people are not getting onto Google and they're actually getting onto, let's say, a Chat GPT or a Copilot or a Gemini, do you also see that businesses will get disrupted in historic ways in which they would actually spend on ad revenue? Or do you see that if the platform shifts, let's say from Google to Chat GPT will also start promoting a lot of ads?
I think that can definitely happen anytime soon. I mean, but I feel that platforms like Chat GPT or any other platform like Gemini, uh, currently it is available to the market out there, because it's a new platform and people are just getting accustomed to it. But even them, I think they do have models wherein they are directly charging a certain subscription fee. And in near future, there's definitely a chance to have all of those on board, certain ad formats on their platform as well while you're using it.
Yeah. And I also want to go back to thinking about, influencers. Many a times we've seen a lot of people from grassroots level, people with mother tongue influence. A lot of people now are very comfortable being influencers in their regional language or their mother tongue, as compared
Yes.
to a couple of years earlier where they would struggle with English, try to sell products in English, and not do a great job of it. But today they have said, listen, you know what? I am, let's say, example, a Maharashtrian or a Gujarati, and I speak Gujarati at home and I speak Gujarati fluently. I rather just sell this product in Gujarati by speaking Gujarati, by making the entire narrative as a story at home or with friends or colleagues natural, rather than speak English with an MTI. So, do you see this shift happening, and what are your thoughts on this?
Definitely, that is something that's been taken up by a lot of brands lately. In fact, the regional touch again builds that connect and authenticity with the audience. So the micro macro influencers are definitely on a rise. I mean, even influencers with maybe 2,000 followers, 3,000 followers get really good brands, wanting to actually promote their product, again creating that authentic content and UGC that they aim for, because it builds that connect with their own segment. But again, that also depends on the type of brand that is. I mean, if it's an FMCG product, any FMCG brand would definitely want to go all out. So they would look for a massy audience, go out into certain regions, maybe have 10 influencers picked up from all these regions and keep communicating certain things to promote their product. So it also depends on the brand that is addressing to these people. If it's a niche product, they would still not approach maybe the micro macro influencer. They would still go with the brand ambassadors that they usually prefer going for.
Got it. And maybe my last question for the evening, and then maybe I'll toss it back to you in case you believe I haven't asked a question that's important for our viewers to know. But if Radhika had to launch her clothing brand in 2027 fall, a good heads up of 2 years from today, what would Radhika do into the future? Maybe tell us a technology, a pattern, a way of launching it that no one's ever seen, or that might be the future of marketing. I know I'm putting you in a spot. I'm so sorry, but
I,
I would love for you to think and tell us. Fall of 2027, Radhika Shah is launching her clothing brand. How would Radhika launch it?
so that I will really have to give a thought. But that's a really exciting question. I think in the next 2 years, how the evolution is going to be more focused on AI, and the way, I mean, the the world is going ahead. Even in case of launching brands and promoting it globally, it will be through all of these tools and technologies being used. But yes, definitely, because again, whenever a brand launches, the core still remains how what you want to communicate as a brand to your audience. The communication will still, be very direct of what me as a person and essentially want to have in the brand. So I don't think it'll be I mean, I can't see through what it's going to be like in 2 years, but definitely it'll be very direct is what I feel. So yeah.
Super. And is there any question that you think I should have asked you, which I haven't? I know this is a very vast topic. We haven't spent too much time talking about mind tricks. But if you want to conclude the podcast talking a little bit about mind tricks and um, do brands or do agencies also trick and play tricks with the minds of the consumer? If yes, how? And tell us some of the thoughts that you have on this subject before we wrap up.
So I think I would just like to conclude in the end by saying that technology isn't something that we just use anymore. It's literally the space that we are living in, and with the brands being wanting to stand out, we will be the ones who will not chase trends, but truly understand what the people truly understand what people behind the screens are wanting to communicate. So yeah, I mean, that's all I have to share.
Super. Thank you so much, Radhika. Thank you for your time. I know the party is waiting for you outside and you've actually taken time out. So before you leave us, tell us what's going to be your poison tonight.
Water. Water.
Oh, for a minute, I actually thought you had a bottle next to you and you were bringing the bottle, but
Water.
it's
Water.
H2O. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, so that was Radhika Shah on Quick Bites with HR Bites. Another Monday, another 8 p.m. We spoke about ads, clicks, and mind tricks. And Radhika, you were absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thanks a ton.
Thanks. Take care, everybody, and I will see you right back on another Monday, another 8 p.m. Thank you.